With this choreographic work, I took the opportunity to work on how we can create, notice and draw attention to the existence of a space almost built by us, by our body. We talk about space and talk about an idea, something that becomes tangible only through our movement. It's an attempt to write horizontally with the body in space. But you can also write vertically if you picture the choreography and make tangible the virtual space built through the video rendering and the graphics that track the paths performed. The aim is to participate in a totally virtual creation, working in 3D with a graphic and pursuing the space exploration through dancing bodies in a totally imaginary space. The first thing I started from is the tool that allows us to track movement, the body. The body is motion in space. A human being performs an action in order to understand the inhabited space. A virtual thing has to be seen through other concrete things, such as our movement. You can see the whole pathway through the movement. My body can leave trace forms in the virtual space. First of all, you can see these beautiful dancers undertaking their A-scale in peripheral and transversal movement. Not central because Italy does more from the center of the body, obviously, to our maximum ability of kinesphere. The intention here was to describe a movement that was driven by the need to confine the maximum outside of our kinesphere and to cross it in order to give it consistency, and by choreographic choice is made in accumulation. You can see how their movement begins to draw curved or linear paths from one point to another. The shape of the movement depends on its quality. Depending on where the dancers are, they use a shape quality of rising, descending, or widening and closing, or advancing and retreating, associating the need to go harmoniously from one point to another, and predetermining whether in peripheral or transversal movement. This first group takes the stage by doing the A-scale with a peripheral movement or with a transversal movement. This complete A-scale makes the public eye understand better what the personal space are, how large and how they make up our own kinesphere. Seeing them together, we can not only see how many and which kinespheres can contain themselves, but we can also perceive the motor inside their kinesphere or their bodies. This is what determines and moves a kinesphere in general space. By finishing the A-scale, we can see how all the planes are connected that give shape to all icosahedrals. Now, for choreographic choice, we think of a single large icosahedron and to move from one location to another together. Each interacts with its own movement before being able to respect the same trace forms built in its own personal space. We use a great icosahedron in our choreographic construction because we want to compose the virtual horizontal writing of a plane moved by trace forms of the dancers, who move in affinity with their shape qualities, passing from a horizontal dimension to a vertical one and vice versa. Also, utility of space and shape can change. After this first moment, a second group enters the shared virtual space, proceeding with the transport and making tangible the kinesphere moving in general space through the theory of Valery Presandalov of CHAM. In particular, the group progresses with a spatial progression, and when every dancer meets another dancer, another kinesphere writes a possible path of movement in space through a spatial tension shared. Now, this second group repeats the same procedure to build a tangible rendering of their personal space, just like the other, using the A scale in peripheral or transversal movement. From here, we ask the question how to differentiate ourselves to be able to then illustrate in 3D what will be new paths, new ways of describing our personal space, and how to move in general space. Now we are applying deviations in our pathways. We can give character to new forms as previously explained, and also by the counterpoint game between dancers. In 3D, has a new space full of harmonies and contradiction will be explained. They continue to pass from one location to another exactly as before. That is always along the A scale, but with deviations in the pathway. Now, in this new shift, part of the dancer are moving and doing a spatial progression, the other dancer a spatial projection, and some have body design, in order to be able to navigate the viewer who explore in 3D. Now, the third group is in space. For them, the first approach is to define their own kinesphere through the central movement towards predetermined locations. They try now to advance by placing themselves in a much larger icosahedron. Through this trace form, they delimit a new possible space. They return to their own kinesphere, continuing to move from one location to another in the peripherally singularly. Then we wondered what could happen if, working in a group, each of them continued to move in the peripherally between one location and another, but this time in the kinesphere of the other. Thus, Halloween in a 3D image of continuous intersections, curves, one inside the other. As a closer and extension of this shared space, here too the spatial tension takes hold. The dancers collaborate in sharing the same space through the use of spatial tension and to interact with their own shapes. Now, as a closer to connect the three words in which we dance live and operate, that is, body, space and sound, I wondered how can I in 3D make a special shift. Here comes chord. So after we personally build our chords with 3 parts of the body, which tend to 3 different locations, we perform them in sequence and then simultaneously. Now we can see the dancer in a live performance, where they are building the same structure that we saw vertically in the previous video. Now they are dancing live and they are building horizontally the imaginary space as before. At this moment, we can imagine icosahedrons around the dancers. As the video continues, I will explain my inspiration. To return to our speech of analytic description of the process of construction of this choreographic work that you are seeing, I will cite one of the most significant phrases that have driven me to create this work and to understand how to put into practice these wonderful spatial theories. From the book Point of Departure of Valerie Preston Dunlop, I read and resume: the right A scale is the most performed scale because it is the most compatible with the human body's natural range of movement. To create a harmonic structure of this choreographic that has the objective to create a kind of horizontal and vertical writing, depending on where it is viewed, on the stage or on video. For this reason, I chose to do the A scale with a peripheral or with a transversal movement, also when we apply deviations. Another important inspiration was when I have started and compared through how the researching of other famous works and from the book Exhausting Dance of Andrei Lepechky. It talks about a spectacle that happened in Philadelphia by Trisha Brown with the title It's a Draw Live Fit. It was made in collaboration with the Department of Modern and Contemporary Art of Philadelphia Museum of Art. I read and resumed from his book an important part that has inspired me. This performance was unusual. It was a hybrid of improvised dance and automatic drawing. Witnessed it live. by an audience placed in a separate space in the museum, where they could watch a live video of Trisha Brown dancing the drawing. In Brown's case, her piece dealt with the dancer's relationship to drawing, complex relationship of dance and visual art with horizontality. Brown's idea is based on several layers of abstract space. The first one derives from the participation of the room in the visual ideological economy of the art museum. The second comes from the fact that Brown's performance was broadcast on television. The third layer is the perspective framing and its inevitable disembodied vision. The fourth, particularly relevant for dance studies, brought by the specificity of white space. Now we are at the end of the performance, and here each dancer repeats the chords but in conjunction with the pianist's music chords. In my perspective, in this way, I can play music with my body. So we are on another level of an imaginary virtual space.